Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Artist Chat with Music for Your Inbox. Today, we're going to be talking with the artist behind this month's sound film. That is lens-based artist Calethia DeConto, who works in printmaking, film, photography, and collage, and musician Joy Guidry, who works with electronics, bassoon, poetry, and performance arts. So let me get them invited and we'll have our conversation. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you
Hi.
both so much for joining us today. I'm really excited. So just to recap for people who are joining us now, Calethia and Joy are the lead artists behind our sound film this month, Communion. And it's a really beautiful tapestry centered around Joy's performance, poetry, electronic music, and bassoon playing that's enhanced by beautiful film work and experimental imagery by Calethia. So I thought it'd be nice to get started today to just talk about some of your interests as artists and kind of give people a context for the way you're working right now. So, Calethia, this is the second time we're getting to present your work in a totally different mode, which is exciting. And I got out the in May 2022, we got to present your work as a piece of mail art, Holding Her Ground, which is an embellished photograph. It's got these beautiful embellishments on the image. And now we get to present your work as a film artist. And I've been a fan for a really long time of how you're working in that space. And I wanted to talk about, you mentioned in the way you describe your work that you are, it's a lot about exploring your relationship with nature, personal rituals, healing, and I love this, like sensuality and metaphysical intuitions. So I'd love if you could talk about your practice in this context and like what you're drawn to as an artist.
Yeah, I think nature is my priority for connecting through my lens. And when I think about it spiritually, maybe it's called Mother Nature, maybe it's my mother. And so I was raised by my dad, and it was super backpack kind of throughout the world as a military brat. So I think nature, it's very grounding. And so exploring the connections that I feel that embody me physically, like that I reflect and I can see in others as well in nature is really interesting. I also just like sparkling waves and dappled light and finding time to rest my mind looking at nature. And so I want to share that with other people through my video work and photography.
Yeah, there is a real sense of like of shine, glimmer, and sparkle, I think, to so much of your work. And that's really apparent in the film that we're presenting, Communion. So I think people will get to really enjoy that aspect of your practice. And Joy, I really love this description you have of your practice. It's like the first line when you're talking to yourself about yourself in text. Radical self-love, compassion, laughter, and a drive to amplify Black art makers and noisemakers comprise the core of bassoonist and composer Joy Guidry's work. So, my first of all, it's really exciting to see like a mission-driven musical practice. I think a lot of times musical artists have sonic interests, but I think that what I see a lot in your work is both this um, a lot of self reflection in your practice, but also a real mission around community and community building. And I was wondering, can you talk about how this all plays out in your work?
Yeah. I have a lot of dreams in life. And I've learned through like the way I like to make music with doing a lot more electronic music or doing stuff with different types of jazz or different genres that I don't know how to do everything. And I accepted that a while ago. But I have learned through like collaboration with other people when I was younger, and now that like you can achieve what you want with other people. Like it doesn't always have to be a personal victory, you know. Um, Family means a lot to me, so I kind of like see each project like that. I know some people say like their job, their workplace environment is like a family, but it's actually like really toxic.
So I try not to like ever make it like that. But yeah, with like specifically this new project I'm working on, Amen, it's about religion, queerness, queer performance, all of these different aspects and thoughts behind it. And behind so much of those, each community, is family, is all of that. So right now there is a lot of collaboration happening. This isn't typical of everything I do, but it has opened my mind so much of just like releasing and trusting and like hoping people send stems on time, and like, but also having that compassion when they don't. So, it's definitely been a beautiful process of adopting these new kind of like ideologies into my practice. Yeah, it's been a really fun journey.
Beautiful. And actually, you really kind of segued into something I wanted to talk to you next about, Joy, which is, the audio from this film comes from your upcoming album, Amen. And my understanding, and I could be getting this wrong, is it is kind of an extension or response to your other album, Radical Acceptance. And I was wondering if you could, yeah, talk about that project and what's in it, what you're grappling with, what you're moving towards.
Yeah, with each project I've done, the last track is the clue to what's coming next. So with my EP, Darkness is a Myth, it ended with this 7-minute ambient track with little recordings of my family having fun. And then Radical Acceptance was telling the story of like what it's actually like for me and my family. What is life like for me? What is it in the good and the bad? And then Radical Acceptance ended with Grace, which is now kind of the whole aspect of this new album, and the new live project as well. It opens with this sample of Toni Morrison talking about having grace for yourself and everything like that. So um, with this upcoming project, it's a lot rooted in gospel. A lot of gospel music, a lot of blues, a lot of jazz, but a lot of experimentation with all of that in ways that will be noticeable sonically, but things are also behind the scenes of one of the tracks has a gospel choir, but it's all Black queer people. So it's just like every aspect of it was like thought so intentionally and very deeply of how to make this my own. And I don't even want to say like reclaim it. I don't know if I want to keep this with me forever, but at least for this time to like make it something that is coming from me, something that's not just a regurgitation. There's one song that I did kind of, I guess, not a cover, but just like a reimagined version of this really cool jazz track, and just trying to figure out like what is my testimony with it. Because when I see church and religion and the gospel and everything, it's really just getting a message across. And there's so much messages of hate and unwant of many queer people, especially in like the Black church and everything. And it's kind of just taking that and putting it on its head and making our own music with it.
Yeah, I think I really it's so cool to hear this connective piece that like you lead to and from. I didn't realize that that was there, so I feel like I get to re-listen now and and see that thread going through. Um, I so with the film that's out now in throughout all of October, um, we've been describing the film as kind of a hyper reality around Joy's performance because it includes both performance footage that Calethia filmed, and then also Calethia, it includes a lot of other footage from your that you've kind of created over time and collected. And I was wondering if you could talk about how you brought these things together, because I think it speaks to some of your like collaging practice and the way you have this ability to connect imagery in really rich ways. And I think it was also a huge challenge to incorporate these two really different contexts of film together. And it was when I saw it, I was really like transported in all kinds of directions I didn't expect. So I wanted you to talk about what that process was like, where the other footage comes from maybe, and how you put it all together.
Yeah, so I am a collage artist. I've always liked collaging, and I think that video editing is very similar in that way because you're cutting and you're sort of pasting things together. So that's an intuitive approach. And I think that all of the things that I gather are just moments that I want to remember or that I'm attracted to or that spiritually connect with me in some way. So I do have my own archive of still images and videos for over 20 years, and probably things people will never see, but I do have a really good memory. So there's sort of this archive, as I'm sure a lot of artists have, different things in their brain. So when I first, when you first brought this to me, and I was definitely intimidated because I've never filmed a live performance. And my boyfriend is really into music and stuff, and he was just like, you have to have different camera angles, and you can't do all this different stuff that you're used to doing, because what I'm used to doing is just sort of like cutting and chopping and doing whatever. And you had explained to me very patiently, like, no, this is going to be one take pretty much, so that was a great challenge for me, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity because it's not something that I'd ever thought I wanted to do. And I love music, but it didn't seem like my lane or my genre. So that was a wonderful challenge. And then to hear the words that Joy recorded and to listen to the music as I was editing, my brain would just go to a moment on the waves or a sister dancing that, has sort of like a nice flow to it that went with that moment. And so I tried to not be too literal, but I also still tried to mesh everything together. And as Joy had mentioned earlier, collaborating is something that I'm fine with, but it's not my go-to. So I've been really pushing myself this year to just allow notes to come in from other people in the editing process, and to partially be a tool for others for their vision to come through.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that because I associate your work so much with real mastery of movement, even when it's still imagery or moving imagery, um, because the way you capture moments always is so imbued with movement in it. And to me also music is so like related to like these gestures and movements, so it was a very natural kind of seeing you. I was surprised that music, this was like your first moment working in performance, because it seems so natural to the way you work, and also because like looking at the film, you would kind of never guess that you have such an intuitive, beautiful relationship with music and pacing and movement. I'll share your piece again because I think it's good to look at like even a still moment. There's so much motion and potentiality of motion in the work you create. So I just really love that about your work, and I think that the way you brought it to Joy's music was made a lot of sense and was very kind of intuitive, and your aesthetic of collage really
Comes through.
really it really
Yeah.
comes through exactly. I'm really glad you brought up collaboration, because this was a kind of strange collaborative project where um, we like match made a little
You
bit,
did.
like would you two be interested in working together?
Yes.
um, and I think that
Joy
you
needs to
both
come over so we can merge.
There are changes. Beautiful. So I wanted to have a moment where y'all could talk about what that collaborative experience was like. A lot of it was virtual. There was one day where we like all came together for the shoot. Um, but I think that the way from an outside perspective or from a matchmaking perspective, the way y'all are able to collaborate shows a lot of experience just with working in professional spaces and in collaborative spaces, and making room for voices while also having a real clear artistic voice yourself. And I think a lot of artists, that's not something that comes naturally to all artists. So I would love for you to talk about maybe approaches or what the experience was like for you. Joy, do you want to start? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, it was really cool. I've seen a lot of like different performance videos from friends or people I look up to and things like that. And like I always wanted to do that. So when you emailed me about it, well, you talked to me after a show about it. I was like, oh, that would be so cool. So I kind of knew that like I love things kind of being in like one take, but when I saw Calethia's work, I was like, oh, this is gonna be really fire. Like, this is gonna be really, really cool. And it kind of was just like, to me, the process was kind of like learning my role in it, you know, and of just like really getting this music down, really thinking about the form, thinking about poetry. And then once I like knew I had what I needed to have a part of this partnership, it was kind of just like releasing everything else, you know, and just trusting that you're going to get the right angles. And you did. But it was a really easy collaboration. There wasn't really anything to worry about. And like, I mean, you did a good job with matchmaking because I feel like the day went by pretty fast. It was like a 4-hour shoot, you know, and that can easily turn into 2 days. So it was really fun. I was really happy with like how the music was perceived visually and especially the words, but there was just like so much comfort throughout the film visually that was really nice to see. A lot of my music in the past that I've made can be a lot, you know, pretty crunchy. But this project, it's not so much that really at all. So it was cool to kind of like really start to see the transition in my artistry to exploring other types of music and genres and things like that. And finally see my music paired with some type of film. I've always wanted to do something like this. So it was just like a really, really beautiful process. And like, I feel like once our visions really lined up with the black and white, with the different kind of shimmer and things like that, it just like took off the rest of the day.
Yeah. And Calethea, what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was cool. It was backwards for me in a way because all the experimental video I've done has been just, controlling everything and then looking for music and finding some random composer in Spain and emailing them, hey, how much can I PayPal you to use this, for my YouTube channel or whatever. So this was reversed. And so it felt a little bit surreal for me. And I was recognizing that I was really sort of honed in on getting the lighting exactly right and just sort of fracturing my brain off as if I was cloning myself into different roles and then it all seemed like it came together. But yeah, I think that for me, it was something that I never had on my bucket list. I never thought, oh, I'm going to film this performance and work within these parameters. But now I want to do more. We've talked about collaborating on something in the future. And whenever I get a bunch of money, I know who I'm calling to score, feature film. So yeah, it was really great. I loved it. And thank you so much for pairing us together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a really dreamy project for me, like curatorially, like two artists. I just love your work, and it's a risk to smash people together. So I'm glad it worked for everyone, and everyone felt really good about it. And I also wanted to reflect back a little bit, observing. I think that something that really impressed me about the way you two work together was your really clear communication about like anything that was a boundary or something you were uncomfortable with or that you wanted to try. And I think that's it was such a like consent and communicative way of working, and that's not always the case in art. And I just really appreciated seeing that unfold, and I think that that's something that other people is worth hearing about for other artists who might be watching this, that that's just a really beautiful way of working, and making something really special.
Um,
So,
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that because at the end of the day, I mean, if we can take our ego out of it or whatever, I mean, we all just want to express ourselves. And so, as Joy had mentioned earlier, why not? I mean, it's corny, but like, why not hold hands and just like skip into the sunset together? And at the end of that, we have this incredible thing that came from our soul and our spirit. And so, I constantly remind myself, it's a tug of war with the ego and I can't remember exactly how Joy had said it, but your own personal goals or victories or whatever. And so that's just a constant thing in my brain. that I work with, we're all just coming from the same place, you know, of this true artistic expression, and we just want to make it. We just want to make it.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. And I was talking about this week with like Pharoah Sanders' Love is Everywhere. You know, there is like when listening to that, there is no ego involved. Like I don't believe you can make music that free and that beautiful and that liberating with having any egos in the room. People were clearly holding many hands and skipping into many sunsets during that session, you know? And that is something that I aspire to have more in my practice and not worry so much about the results or like, is this going to hit hard or anything like that, but just kind of like have fun. But at the same time, you know, like you still do want to have a good product and take things seriously. And this collaboration definitely felt like a very healthy medium of those two things. So yeah, it was fun with doing more shoots and things like that. Now it's definitely a different world. You know, it's definitely different from sitting in the practice room or just like sitting and playing Brahms. While that was fun, you know, but it's definitely also just cool having this piece of art now of like, oh wow, you know, things have changed in my life. And it's like hoping more things like this happen in the future. You know, it's cool seeing people interpret your music in this way.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both. I want to also kind of share, like, put in the mix that this film is paired with a piece of visual art by Amaryllis R. Flowers. It's called Miss Abyss, and Amaryllis is also, it works in kind of collage of paper and print and watercolor, and is also kind of reimagining spirituality and healing spaces and paths forward for queer, Black, and Brown communities. So it's a really special way to kind of experience how all of y'all are pointing at different pieces of this same dream. Really, I think Joy, you put that word really well in there. So that's all out now. My stuttering aside, that's all out this October. So you have 10 more days to get a ticket and experience this really beautiful moving film and Amaryllis's mail art. Just head to our website or wherever you gotta be to get it.
And maybe in
Yeah,
person,
yes,
live
yes,
next year.
2024. Keep an eye out.
Yeah.
We do live film screenings, so you can come and see it with community members. So, yeah, thank you both again so much, and I hope you have a fabulous weekend.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. And thanks, Passerine, for the studio space. My family, Passerine.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. Thanks. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.